Sponsor plug. This video is brought to you by BC Racing Custom Coilovers, NK Wheels, Grip Royal, KBD Body Parts, Heatwave Visual, Spec Clutches, Vapetasia, Valino Tires, and of course, WhatMonstersDo.com, and they have a new logo, so check out this new logo. Let's get started. Hello, Lone Star Drift audience. I'm Aaron, and this is Reese. Reese runs a drifting school. He's been around drifting for a very long time. He has a lot of the same friends I do and everything. I thought it'd be fun tonight to chat with Reese because we said something earlier today and we were talking about something with students or tracks or something. And I'm like, hey, I should talk to Reese on like YouTube. So I figure we'll pick a subject and we'll just start jumping from subject to subject to subject. I think first of all, I always try to explain what makes people unique. To me, what makes you unique is you're one of the few people in one of the very first drifting schools in the United States. You worked with Chelsea for a while, I think. You worked on your own for quite some time. I'll let you tell us all about that stuff. And you've just been drifting a really long time. And you're East Coast boy, right?
Yeah.
All right.
From Philadelphia, born and raised in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
And the instructional thing really came from, to save money, right? Like when you're first starting, you're always trying to save money, going to events and stuff like that. So in order to save money at Club Loose, which is the club that I'm a part of, you needed to become a worker. So I was given an opportunity to become a worker, and my job was to instruct. So this is like 2010, 2011. So I got a taste of instructing then, and I did it because this way I didn't have to pay entry fees, and I was saving money. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Little did I know that I just kind of just built a knack for it. Maybe more so off of personality than education at the time when I started, but over time it kind of just accumulated. I was still working like, regular jobs and stuff like that because you don't get paid to do that. It was just a hookup, you know what I mean? So you could work, be able to go and drive at a cheaper, lower cost. And then 2017, I decided to make that jump to the West Coast to Willow Springs to go work for Drift 101.
Mm-hmm.
And Naoki was super nice. He opened up his doors and allowed me to come in and be an instructor there. And he kind of wanted to see how I did things coming from Club Loose and being an instructor. And then the following year in 2018, I started locking things down with Evergreen in Pennsylvania while simultaneously coming over to the Pacific Northwest at Park and helping Chelsea do the School of Drift.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really cool to be able to do all that. Ultimately, I ended up started doing more stuff there. We started traveling, doing clinics and internationally. Like the last one we did was in Saudi Arabia, which was really cool. And just instructing has allowed me to do so much cool things in drifting. Like it's wild. Like the things that I get to do, And I'm not a pro driver or anything like that. It's like I just took a different path, and it kind of like I think the reason it happened this way is because I didn't really force it. It kind of manifested itself. Like people were just like, "Yo, you should come do this,"
Mm-hmm.
because I was doing it for so long pro bono. So it kind of just happened.
All right. Well, let me ask you some quick questions. And you'll just tell me real quick answers. One, is this your full-time job?
Yes, right now, yes.
How long has it been your full-time job?
For the last 3 years.
Is it a real livable wage that you could like support a family on?
Uh, right this second, no, no way.
Can you support yourself on it?
Yeah.
Okay. How many students have you taught?
Oof. Like since the school's open?
Yeah, just how many students have you taught in all of your teaching?
Ah, man, I really want to say thousands, but it has to be hundreds. It's honestly maybe hundreds. I
How
mean,
many cars, like, did the people bring their own cars? Do you provide the cars? Do you have to mechanic the cars? Because I know Chelsea's one, he wanted everyone to use his cars. He didn't want anybody to bring cars. What do you do for that?
I do. I have the offer where you can either rent my car, one of my
Mm-hmm.
cars, which is an E36, an E46, a 350Z, or a G35 currently,
Mm-hmm.
or you can bring your own car, and that's more so for like, okay, I brought my own car. I don't really know how to set up a car. I don't know nothing about side bite, forward bite, or tow in or tow out, or any of this stuff. Or why should I have this or why should I have that? Usually, what happens, people show up and I just find things that are wrong with their cars that are just really basic stuff, and I
Mm-hmm.
kind of explain to them why. And since it's a one-on-one type thing, I think they kind of really absorb it a lot more that way. I think the one-on-one thing really helps a lot. So that's the
Okay.
route I take.
How much does it cost to drift at your place? Like, what are your rates? And like, I would just want to get a feel for all this stuff.
So if you come with your own car, it's $400 for 4 hours.
Okay.
You come with a friend, then it's $500 and you split it. Three friends, it's $600 you split it. And I go up to four people because that's all the insurance clauses
Mm-hmm.
at that point. And I think four friends coming for instruction or getting coached or guidance is 175 a person if you break it down at that point. If you rent one of my vehicles, I have two packages where it's a 2 hour package where it's 575 for 2 hours or 4 hours for 975.
Okay. And how often are you busy? Like, how often do you actually work? Once, 1 day a month, 2 days a month, 30 days a month?
Luckily this year, like I completely sold out. I was booked all last month and I'm currently booked except for tomorrow. I'm booked all this month as well too.
How many days a month is that?
I would say in the 20s right now.
Wait, 20 days a month teaching?
Yeah, it's been a lot.
That's crazy. How many hours a day do you think?
I mean, if I double up, it's 8 hours.
Wow. 8 hours instructing is a long time. I don't think people understand that.
Nah,
Um,
I don't. I think I understand why now Chelsea has told me, he's like, listen, bro, I know you want to help people, but like what you
mhm.
do and how you do it, like it's worth so much more than it is. And my rates have gone up over the last years because I just didn't really feel like I deserved that much money at first. But you do, if you're going to make this a thing, you're going to make this your living. Like you do have to start scaling it up and stuff like that. And that's what I started ultimately doing when I felt like I had the credibility to do that.
Okay. How many drifting schools are currently in the United States, do you think?
Too many.
Too many? Does it help having all those others in the United States, or does it hurt you?
I don't think it hurts me. I think people come to me because they know what they're going to get when they come to me. Like
Hmm.
I think at least in my area, it's more so known. Like you're not really coming to me for an experience of your first time having a drift car. Some people do
Hmm.
that, but you're coming to me because you're gonna like. I don't really let you progress unless you do it the way I tell you. Like if you don't run the right line, like we're not moving past until you understand why you're not running the right line. You're not
Hmm.
timing your transition correctly. Like all of that kind of plays in hand together and it really helps out. You know what I mean? So it's like people kind of know it's like it's about learning. It's not about an experience if you come to me.
Real quickly, um, are the people advanced or are they first time drivers mostly? Like the
Um,
majority of them?
the majority of them now are usually first time drivers now.
And are they first time drivers that want to be drifters, or is it like an experience thing? Like, where they're just like going to skydive?
I would say maybe 25% of them is that, and 75% are people that they want to do this because they followed me on TikTok or something like that because I have a pretty decent following on there, and
Hmm.
they're like, oh, okay, like this is the dude. If I want to get into this, like this is the guy that I can talk to, I can relate to, I can get into a setting where I can ask him any stupid question that I want, and I
Hmm.
get some sort of information. I really think that's the key to all that. You know what I mean? Creating that
Okay.
safe space where they feel comfortable to just ask away.
Hmm. Now, why do you choose the car? Don't go into this too much, but why do you choose the cars that you teach, like, choose to teach in? Is it because reliability? Is because they're the best drift cars? What's the specific reason you use those VQ platforms?
I think the reason I use the VQ platforms is because right now that's what's regularly available. So if they're going to jump into a car that I have, it's probably going to be something they're going to see on the market anyway. Uh,
Hmm.
so I think it's that the support for it, the BMWs because E46s at least in my area of the country, you can find them pretty cheap, and that's another thing I would want to have there. I kind of want to have cars that okay, I drove this, I most likely can go pick this up. Where if I had an S13, chances are my school's the only place you're going to be able to drive an S13 unless you're going to go spend some serious cash.
So it's
Depending.
not because they're really reliable or simple or anything like that. It's just because it's what the people will have available to go buy later on.
No, I think it's obviously that. I think it's obviously the VQs are reliable and everything. They have their
Hmm.
pros and their cons, but I think another reason is this as well, and that's maybe one side that people don't really hear about. But that's why another reason I was like, this is an obvious choice to use these cars.
Interesting. Um, Next up, real quickly, Chelsea's track, or like you taught there, was at Pat's Acres. Excellent tire wear, very technical track, very small. Seemed like it would be a great track. Willow Springs is a cheese grater, and also I would imagine they're mostly teaching up on balcony there.
Yes.
Not a great track. Obviously, it's cool for testing and it's what's available, and it's very inexpensive to rent out and all these things. And then like down in Texas, they have one. They just water it down. I think it's mostly first gear to minimize the wear on the cars. Up with you, I don't know exactly how your layout is. Chelsea, I think, is still teaching down in Florida some, but each of these tracks kind of has a different idea. Um, like if you were teaching at a track and you're allowing the cars to go into third gear on a dry surface, it would break the cars. If you're just teaching first gear donuts on the wet, like down in Texas, that minimizes the wear on cars and makes the cars and the tires and everything much more profitable. Like, the whole thing could be more of a business. How do you focus on that and figure it out? How many tires do you allow the people to burn through? What gears do you let them row through? How fast? Go into that for like 30 seconds.
So that pretty much that whole process, I pretty much got the whole idea of it with Kelsey when I was doing the school of drift. For the
Mm-hmm.
most part, everything was in second gear. So that's really pretty much what I stick with. I gear the 350Zs with the 308 differential and the
Mm-hmm.
G35 and the BMW's 391s. And I pretty much have them in second gear and I kind of have them in that realm. I feel like that's for the track size that I have. I think that's really good for what I'm dealing with and the layout that I have. And I just
Mm-hmm.
kind of get lucky because they just redid that track and added those turns in the last 4 years. So we have pretty good wear there. I only give them one pair of tires, and usually, as long as they do the tire management the way I tell them and they're driving responsibly, it lasts the entire 4 hour session.
And how much was it for a 4 hour session with the tires?
975.
Okay, so that includes tires and everything. I remember you said four or five something, and I was like, how could that possibly include tires? Especially if like it's your own car. All the pricing structures get confusing for me.
Yeah.
Um, okay, is there anything else you want to add to that before I move on?
I mean,
Anything that you want to say that's like different between your school versus any of the others or anything?
um, I think all the schools definitely have a purpose. I definitely think that I think if you are someone that's trying to get into the sport, like try to do some research, maybe talk to some of the local guys to see where you can go to. I think a lot of the places like are very reputable and some places I don't know anything about, you know what I mean? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's for me, I think the easiest way is to just kind of see the proof is in the pudding. And like, that's why, at least on my Instagram or a lot of the places, the social media, it just gets flooded with just footage of my own students. And I'm like, you know
Okay.
what? As long as I have that, that's cool. You know what I mean? Other places I think are more of an experience, but I think
Mm-hmm.
they definitely have their place because there's a demographic for that. So I think it's all good. I think drifting has grown so big, and I think we all have to be open minded, okay, that it's going to evolve and it's going to turn into many different things, whether we like it or not. And that's just the laws of evolution.
So I just had an idea. I should have named this video. I had a bunch of videos where like Drifter, instead of going professional, like make something his job. We had a series of that with like Tyler Capper and Cody Slack and Danny Puck and a bunch. Oh my God, my stupid series coming up. Go away. One second.
That's all good.
No, go away. Okay. Anyways, um, it was in my headphones and confusing. Anyways, I was just going to say a lot of people went professional without having to go do Formula D, and they create careers and like have something long lasting. I think that should have been the title for what like all this was with you. But going back to what we originally talked about in that message, I remember now, was you watched the video with Dan Brockett and he was buying a track, and I was talking about a 5 to 10 year plan and all these different things. And I was going to chat about that with you. Is this something that you could scale and like turn into a Skip Barber or like something else where you could survive for the rest of your life for, the next 10 years or something like that, and build something substantial and large and beyond like just yourself? Does that make sense? Because someone like us, actually, how do I say this? Someone like, Nick Novak, he's
Yeah.
a Pro 2 driver. Some of these guys put a lot of money and effort into drifting. Um, they have so much of a budget, they could literally buy or build a track, if that makes sense, with the amount they're putting into, like, say, professional drifting or something like that. Not saying they have to or anything like that, but there's a lot of money that goes through drifting and a lot of effort too. Same thing with them doing effort. Like, you could have put all that effort into going, like in doing Pro 2 or something like that, but instead you built a drifting school, which I think is super rad. I think it's much more creative actually than going professional. And a lot of people that watch these videos think, oh, Aaron's always trash talking professional drifting. No, I'm not. There's so many people that go do that, but there's way less people like yourself that create a business out of it, or, like, sustain themselves somehow. And you're finding this is like a path that sustains yourself without being like a pit crew, if that makes sense.
Right.
So anyways, going back in the next 5 to 10 years, how would you build this out? Because did you give this any thought after you originally sent me that message?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's been something I've been kind of thinking in my head every time I take that long drive to the track. I'm always thinking like, where can this go? Where can it be? I've thought about like that whole comparison of Skip Barber and stuff like that, but Skip Barber I think came up in a different time and it was a different era. And things were the progression maybe was a little bit slower. Drifting is like progressing, I think, way faster than whatever that was. You know what I mean? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, every 5 years it just leaps and bounds. So I think I just have to kind of stay on my toes. And I think if I'm going to do this in the next 5 years, I really need to just sit down and work with the track owner, which is, excuse me, it's his name is Jason. He's super cool. He's so about this. He openly says drifting is what allows this track to really function and kind of generate income. So
Mm-hmm.
when I heard about the whole like man, it'd be cool to do something like Abisu. Obviously, he has land, and you know, even though I've said this a million times, we've had this conversation over the years. Of like, oh, somebody wants to build a track.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this will work. I think the only way it could be more scalable or grow even more is obviously put time into the track and see how we could build that out, or obviously keep on linking up with Chelsea and people that are like-minded and kind of build out something that benefits everyone, you know what I mean, because that's always been very successful. I've always had a lot more fun collaborating with a lot more people when it comes to teaching and stuff like that. Everyone has a different way of doing it, but I have two avenues: stick with the track and kind of see where it goes. Um, but I think the only way I could do it the other way is obviously having help with like people like yourself, people like Chelsea, and people that I've worked with in the past, that you can kind of count on for certain things because we're all kind of shooting for the same goal. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Um, did you answer if that would be like what specifically? Like, you would scale and have 3 employees also teaching, you'd be at a bigger facility, you'd have more rental cars, you'd simply do more people, or you would raise your rates. Or
yeah,
like, say you started flying to local events on weekends, such as like to mine, and you had like 5 students lined up and you could do that and like fly around or something. What is the, like, how are you going to grow this thing?
I would definitely have to get. I think honestly is just more vehicles. I mean, you just have to have them ready to go. I mean, at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, you need to stack up a fleet. That's just if you really want to be able to just be like, oh, it broke down. Here you go, jump in another one and go. Because at the end of the day, you're there for the customer. You're for that. So I definitely want to get more vehicles, which I pretty much just keep on bringing the money straight back into that. And then eventually be like, okay, listen, I'm going to have employees. Obviously, I had the model based off of the School of Drift because I
Mm-hmm.
was doing it with Chelsea, and then me and Travis Reeder were doing it. So I kind of have the idea of how that's going to go. But again, that was 5 years ago or 6 years ago at the
Mm-hmm.
time it happened, and now things are a little bit different. So the goal would be for something like that. I've also think about maybe it gets popular enough where someone like Skip Barber wants to maybe buy me out. I take a percentage, but I can still oversee the drift department. I don't know. I think there's a lot of possibilities because drifting is actually being taken more seriously. So I may say one thing now, but 3 years there may be completely different offer on the table just because that's just the nature of this sport, I think.
Mm-hmm. How many rental cars do you have, you said?
Right now I have four and I have some other ones that I'm trying to get ready.
Interesting. Um, Trying to think of things that you could do to like make all this work out. You could rent cars to some like doctors and come do Drift Week and support like 5 cars at once and teach and do everything for like 2 weeks and have like a big package for them. That would be interesting if you could have enough people, you know what I mean? Like, have adventure packages, but that might be way less profitable than having them come directly to your track, if you know what I mean. Unless it
Yeah.
become like much more of a luxury thing.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I think
hmm,
mine is. I thought I was going to get a lot of people from Philly because I'm from Philadelphia, right?
hmm,
But oddly enough, I've gotten a lot of people from Manhattan.
hmm.
People that like, and again, this is like a very small demographic, but it's interesting, and I think it'll grow. I have a lot of like middle-aged men that are like, I'm not going to go to a normal drifting event, but I'm going to come to you because you're kind of middle-aged, and I'm like, all right, and they get to
Oh,
come.
really?
Yeah, because I got some gray coming in now, so they kind of look at me like, "Oh, you're a little bit older, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and they
You're like
come,
dick.
yeah, but it's cool, you just roll with it, and they
Yeah.
come, and they just kind of, if you go to Club Blues, if you're from New York, you go to Club Blues, and you're like 45 years old, it's kind of intimidating. You may feel out of place because it's not that the drifting is out of place. The culture is like you've never been used to that. So you coming to me kind of allows them to kind of ask all these questions, and I've been getting a lot more of those people from that New York area, which is really interesting. I never thought that demographic would be interested in something like this. But
Hmm.
I think the people that you're talking about, honestly, those are the people that will more than likely probably jump over to the Team O'Neill, because they have like an experience where you can go for school for like 3 days or something like that.
What is Team O'Neill?
They're like a rally school that's over in New Hampshire and stuff like that. So they kind of do something like that.
Ah.
So like when I instructed there, they're like, hey, you come up, try this out, see what you think of it. And it was kind of like a mimic of what they would do in their rally. They just did
Hmm.
it on the pavement instead of on the dirt. And it was like an experience type of thing, but like those people, and it's not like I'm plugging them or anything, but the point is like those customers that were showing up to them were a completely different customer base than the ones that would come to me, and I found that
Yeah,
very.
but I was gonna say even now, if you rewound 10 years ago, the customers you're getting now are completely different than drifter, like people
Oh
getting
yeah.
into drifting 10 years ago, and even 5 years ago. I mean, like they have so much more money to take a class. Like no drifter 10 years ago would pay anything to take a class.
Oh yeah,
They'd be like, I could buy a whole car for $1,000. You're like, okay,
you're
cool.
right, you're absolutely right, yeah, yeah, I mean
So drifting is changing quickly, and like if you just, how do you say?
it's
Like even for Drift Week, it took me a while to like increase prices to like what actually would allow Drift Weeks to continue because I wasn't charging enough and stuff. And now like we actually can actually, like continue these things with the higher amounts. And you get like a whole different luxury customer or people that, like they're already doing Pro 2, they know how much drifting costs. But I mean, your local drifter is just like, I'm not paying $200 when I could go to a like loading dock and do burnouts at night for free, and you're like, okay, whatever. Like we have to pay these tracks and insurance and corner workers and feed people and do everything.
yeah,
Um, okay. Well,
it's a
what
cool
else do
thing.
you want to talk about?
Yo, these my let me talk about the best customers that come. The best customers that come are definitely the 13 to 18-year-old sim drifters.
Really?
Dude, I'm telling you, they show up. They're super nice kids. None of them are cocky because again, they a lot of them I sim drift with them because they'll send me a message on TikTok and say, "Yo, let's jump into whatever room together," and we're out there ripping together. And then they're like, "Oh, I'm coming to the school." They come with their parents, and like, bro, like all of these kids are better than like every adult that's ever showed up. One like they're like, "What do you need me to do?" I'm like, so I test them. I'm like, "All right, we'll do a donut," and I was like, do it the way I tell you to do it. Do a figure eight, do it the way I tell you to do it. And they're like, "All right, now what?" I'm like, "We're 20 minutes in." Like I'm like,
Hmm.
"Ah, okay, let's do this transition. Let's do a late apex turn, crushing, crushing, crushing." And then I'm like, "All right, dude. Well, here's half the layout. Like, I'm not even going to tell you, well, how do you think you should run this?" And then like they know this stuff already. They just
Hmm.
don't know how to like,
Well, because they have a million hours of it in the game.
yeah, and they just don't know how to apply it because they're like the one kid, 12 years old last year, he was just like, I think the problem is that I'm feeling how fast the car is going, and I think I'm getting scared. I'm like, well, that's called G-force. So like get used to that. But now he went and got his own car. He's 13 years old now, and he's ripping. He just showed
Really?
up, and I'm just like,
We had
It's
somebody come out to one of the drift weeks and he was a sim drifter. I don't want to call out who he was. And he immediately like was hand braking and clutch kicking at the same time and took out like a diff and like four axles, burned out a clutch. It was pretty funny. Do you have a lot of that?
so the sim drifters do have habits.
Yeah.
So the excessive clutch kicking and not understanding, they use visual cues because they don't have dyno butt cues. They don't
Mm-hmm.
feel that type of stuff. So that stuff has to get adjusted. You know what I mean? They have the idea, it's just skewed the other way. So you got to reel them back in a different manner, but it's a lot quicker than someone who just doesn't let go of the wheel or lets go of the wheel and
Yeah.
let go of it's a completely different atmosphere. And I think they're at a young enough age where someone like me has so much influence on them where they just kind of check themselves. Like I've never had anyone that's been a dick or anything like that or treated my cars with disrespect. Like everyone has been super respectful and the kids are just they're just so blown away that they're in a real car doing this that they're just like they'll listen
Mm-hmm.
to anything you're saying. You know what I mean? So it's an enjoyable thing for them. And I think the hardest thing is when you look over at the mom or dad, and then you have to tell them, "Listen, I know you think little Jimmy's a rock star, but like let's bring it down a little bit, all right?" Like because you can see it, they're like, "Oh, what do I got to do? What do I got to buy them?" I'm like, "Whoa, time out! Like I can't believe I'm even having this
You're like
conversation."
nine more lessons.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking on that, people usually ask me how many times do you think you should come to the class. And this is probably a bad business model, but whatever. I tell them like you really only should be coming to me like twice, and
Mm-hmm.
after that, like you should probably just go get your car, come back to me, we'll set it up. I'll tell you how to adjust your car when you leave, and by then, like I don't know, come back to me when you want to do some crazy advanced stuff. Because at that point, what do you do? You know what I mean? You kind of have to let them go out there and figure out what style they want to drive. Like I don't teach styles. I the four core fundamentals, the one that are the same across the boards. Some of them like doing the Japanese stuff. Some like doing the calm stuff. Some of them doing more of like the grassroots, be really loose stuff. So they all come back a little bit different, and then you have to make adjustments with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool. It's awesome. I mean, I can nerd out on that shit all day. You know what I
All right.
mean?
Well, what else do you want to talk about? You can continue nerding out about that, but I figured I'd push you in another direction for a minute. What's
Uh,
the most normal thing, by the way, to break on those rental cars?
disease for whatever reason, I'm just eating coil packs.
Coil packs?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
coil
Are
packs.
you putting junk coil packs in there?
No, I mean, they were like 80 bucks or 90 bucks, whatever I got. But I mean, they were the ones that were in there. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I really haven't had a lot of,
And
you
are
know,
they DE ones or HR ones?
DEs with, I got one DE and the other one's a rev up. So I just monitor the oil on that one, but they all do pretty good. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I'm about to put a plenum spacer on the DE one. Like I said, they both have 408 differentials.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like that maybe they're a little bit different, so then the driver can get a little different taste. Like some people get really used to the 350Z, and then I put them in a BMW, and then they're like, "Oh, I can't figure it out." I'm like, "You can figure it out. You just gotta
Explain
respond."
tires to me real quickly. How many tires do y'all go through in a month for the whole school? What tire size are you running? What kind of air pressures and what brands? And like, how'd you arrive at that solution, if you know what I mean?
When it comes to the tire brand, I'm actually using like Fallways right now.
Fallways? I haven't heard of those. Okay, keep going.
Fallways, they're 225, 4517, pretty much the identical spec that we were using over at the School of Drift.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know if it depends on however many rentals I have that month. It's a pair of tires. Usually nobody goes past a pair. So I mean, it's a good amount. I mean, I'm usually hitting up AutoZone on Auto, hitting up the internet and getting some, 10 at a time or 20 at a time sent over to me. So I go by a good bit, but not everyone uses all the tires. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes if they don't use all the tires, then I just move it over to the next student. I've had some students that a pair of tires have lasted me 3 lessons. So at that point, I'm
And
super.
30 tires a month, 100 tires a month,
Yeah, I could see that on a really good month. Yeah, right around there. I would say maybe 50.
50 tires. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get it in my brain. Um, And the
And I
cars
think
don't blow up. You haven't lost any cars.
no, the only car that I lost, it was my fault. I told the student, I'm like, oh, can you just move the car over there? And he went through the puddle, and I should have told him. I shouldn't have told him anything. I told him to move it over, and I knew that this had one of those intakes that went to the bottom, and I just picked up the G35 at the time, so it
Hmm.
sucked up some water in it. Hydrolocked my engine. So
Oh,
that was
that's weird.
totally, it was totally, well, I mean, the intake is all the way at the bottom, so it sucked up the water. It's one of the ones that go all the way
Yeah,
down.
but I mean, you'd still have to go through a puddle like that deep.
I mean, it was a pretty, it,
You're like, it was a little lake.
it was a little, yeah, it was a little late. So I was just kind of like, ah. But other than that, I've never had one grenade on a student or anything. I think I had to go to RT tuning, I think it was. I had to go to them and take my ECU to them so they can take off the security thing because it locked me out and I couldn't like turn it on. It just kept on just.
Yeah.
So I had to do that. Other than that, I really haven't had many issues. Knock on wood, dude. Like now this month everything's gonna go to hell because I'm saying this, but luckily I haven't really had a lot of issues with anything so far.
Okay, what opportunities has this school and all this stuff brought you? You said you went to go teach people overseas, in Saudi Arabia. What other crazy things have you done? Or you can even tell me about that one.
I mean, Saudi
What
was.
crazy things?
I mean, Saudi was great just because you're just in a place you just never thought you would be going for drifting.
Hmm.
Um, Having those opportunities opened up the door to then go to Brazil. I just went to Brazil like a month and a half ago or something like that,
Hmm.
to go judge. So a lot of judging opportunities come out of it. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people just are now correlating. Oh, you're a spotter. You were a spotter in FD, and awesomely, I got an award for that, and then I got all the judging that I've done, and then the school. So it really just it kind of lends itself to go back and forth to wherever they need. Like I'm going to go down to Atlanta for a judging gig. I could do more, but I actually slowed down how many gigs I wanted to take because I wanted to focus more on the school. Because as much as you want to say yes to everyone, like you still have to take care of what's at home. You know what I mean? So I really
And you'll
wanted.
go broke taking all those gigs because they typically don't pay well, but you want to do them because they're fun and help out a community and stuff. But then you end up like traveling for 2 days. And then also, at least takes 5 days to judge a 2 day comp at the minimum with traveling and everything. So like you're suddenly not really getting paid for a week of time, or you can't, you know, charge somebody for a whole week of time to like judge a local comp for 2 days. Doesn't
Yeah,
really
it's
work out
one of those.
economically.
I mean, the only one that really works out for me that I don't mind doing at all is obviously is Englishtown Gambler because it's 45 minutes away, an hour away from my house, so it's not a problem. Everywhere else, you have to kind of charge accordingly and stuff like that because if I'm not there, I could potentially be back at home doing one class, which two classes I'm already making
Yeah.
way more. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of pick and choose.
But I was going to say, a grassroots event can't really afford that much. And then for you to take a week off to go to like Brazil or anywhere to like judge after expenses and you making enough to like afford to live has got to be 3 or 4 grand. Because, hotel rooms, all this other stuff, flights, and then your time for a week to try and survive as an adult. We have gray hair now. So like we're not 16-year-old kids.
Yeah.
Hmm, okay.
Yeah, that's a reality. And then it's like I think to be honest with you, I think it's a little bit older. I mean, a little bit easier now that we're older because when I was in my 20s and I'd come up with crazy ideas, no one really took me serious. But as soon as I got into my 30s and I had these crazy ideas, people are like, "Oh, I think they could probably work." You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like it's I think the name of the game, at least for drifting for me, is like it's a marathon. It isn't a race. You just got to
Hmm.
stay in it. You got to be genuine and positive in the community and contribute in the best way possible. And as long as that happens and the people that you have around you are good, like the opportunities will come. I mean, I see it happen all over the country. Like it's awesome. You know what I mean?
What is your dream car?
Oof, man, I'm such a JDM for when it comes to that. I want to chase her so bad. I want to chase her real bad.
Why is
Because
that?
Because like when I was younger, I used to watch all those videos and like the 240 you could get and like the skylines you would see. But every time
Hmm.
I see a chaser, I'm just like, they sound cool. They're four door, like they're just, I look at Jeff Stonebacks and I'm just like, man, it's so cool. You know what I mean? Like, so that's really my thing is with that.
And would you drift it or just daily it?
money wasn't an object, it'd be both, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But they're
100.
kind of starting to become collector's deals, so that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
You wouldn't want like a Porsche or a Ferrari, or you just
Oh,
want a little old JZX.
I mean, like car. I thought you meant like drift car.
No,
Porsche.
just in general.
In general, Porsche, 100%. If I could have a Porsche, yeah, Porsche 911 GT, like yeah,
Like a
100%.
GT3 or something?
No, maybe not so much a GT3. You know what I mean? Maybe step underneath that. You know what I mean? Something where I'm just not like You know what I mean? I just
Like
like the
a naturally aspirated one, a turbo one?
Yeah, maybe just a turbo one. I've driven turbo ones when I used to do those high performance exotic
Mm-hmm.
car, and I would drive those. Like we had one company that was really good, and he would bring his personal Porsche and let us use it, and that thing was just a blast. You know, it rewarded you if you drove correctly, and that's what I really liked. Whereas when I would drive like the Italia 458 or any of the Lamborghinis or anything that I would drive, I was like, oh, I'm doing cool shit, but like it's really the car doing it. It's not me.
Mm-hmm.
But the Porsche, it rewarded you for you being the driver, and that's what I like about
Interesting. What year?
it. I don't know. It was cool. It wasn't an old one. It was one of the new ones. That's for sure.
Okay. Um, Interesting. I find it interesting, like what car guys want. Very rarely do drifters like want Ferraris or Lamborghinis or anything like that. Um, all right. Where do you want to end your drifting career?
Driving as physically still be able to drive as long as I can and be able to do this where it's not going to cost me a ton of money.
But I mean, you don't want to do anything else with your life. You don't want to be a doctor, a lawyer. You don't want to own a restaurant. You don't want to travel. You don't want to like, if you're drifting for the rest of your life, you're going to give up all the other options you had. You could be some real estate investor. You could be a carpenter, like something else that would give you satisfaction, a different skill set, another experience in life, a whole nother chapter. You know what I mean? Is this just going to be one chapter being a drifter from start to end?
I mean, and part of me is like, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. I mean, I have a lot of fun. For for what everything I've gotten to do in drifting over the last 2 decades almost, it's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of fun. And if I can get another 2 decades of that, I mean, that's a blessing. You know what I mean? I have people that come up, and again, I really don't think I'm that much of anything other than just focusing on being an instructor. But I know there's people that say, I wish I could do a fraction of the things that you're doing. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us that are drifters or in the community, I think sometimes we get a little jaded because we're around this social group so much that we don't realize that to the normal person, what we do is literally the rock lifestyle. You know, it's just
Mm-hmm.
you get to do what and hang out where. And so I definitely try to do that. I try to remind myself of that. Ultimately, we do have a Colombian bakery business that we have here in Philadelphia. I know that eventually that when my parents, hopefully in a long time in the future, they pass, that's gonna be something me and my brothers are gonna have to be dealing with. So I know that's always in the back of my mind. They've done a really good job in setting up an amazing business for us. I'm sure we're gonna have to bust our ass to keep going. Um, I think ultimately that's what it'll be, kind of set it up to where I can still kind of do both. I don't know which one's going to make more money, but at least I know I have two things that I can kind of like go on. And I mean, I'm always up for opportunities. I think the next thing maybe I'd want to do, and I've kind of joked around with Brian Egger, is to go be a judge for FD and kind of take that criticism that comes along with that.
Was gonna say that way you have more enemies.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think at this point, if anyone's going to get put under the hot, you know, I mean, I don't care. Like, I'm around that type of environment where you're kind of dealing, have to kind of stand your ground so much. And I don't think that'd be an issue at all. And I think Ryan Lontaine and Brian Egger have done a good job of kind of showing me how that all works. And I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I know my name was on the table like maybe a couple years ago that could possibly be a thing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that'd be cool to do. You know what I mean? Just to kind of see how that would go. Again, I know there's a lot of criticism that comes with that, but whatever. Like I'm all about that. Like,
You're fine. You're East Coast. You're used to people yelling.
yeah, yelling.
Um,
If you yell at me, I kind of just take it like you like me. But if you don't talk to me, then I'm just like, all right, I see where you're at with that. You know what I mean? You know how we are.
um, so you would like to be a judge. I assume you'd like to consider like continue your school. One thing I will like bounce off of what you just said. I am aware that I get to do crazy crap all the time that normal people don't get to do, whether it be like meeting royal families over in the Middle East, which we got to do, like bomb around in their crazy cars and like see their car collections. And I get to go around the world and like be in after parties that are private. Even though I don't drink or party, it's still, you understand you're in a neat place with interesting people. Um, I think that I do get jaded to that and everything, but I also at a certain point where I have a baby now and like a wife and everything, and it can be difficult being gone for weeks at a time, sometimes almost a month, and it can be very difficult. I try to always be home for like when she gets out of school, um and then, get her through bath time and into bed and everything and be there every day. But I really only see the kid, most of the time 4 hours a day. Um and her mom takes care of her a lot more than that. But to like find balance in life, because especially like with drift week, you went on drift week. I mean, that is months of planning, executing, being there. Like the other things in your life, you don't have balance. I don't exercise enough. I don't take care of myself mentally enough. I work all the time. Like right now it's 11 p.m. and I've been up all day, and then like I edit video and do all this stuff at night. I was going to say there's no balance to our lives whatsoever. Maybe you have some balance, but like I certainly do not. And especially if you're the one physically keeping those rental cars together. I don't know if you're working on them. Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're the mechanic, like people don't understand. You're like, you did 8 hours today. That's cool. You're like, I did 8 more working on the cars because they have to be ready for tomorrow. Like changing tires is not a something people thank you for. Disposing of tires, there's so many people don't understand, like to go to the track is hours of loading. Like typically it's a whole day of getting your car ready and loading and like
100%. It's the nickel and
yeah.
dimes that get you. The nickel and dimes. Then not literally the nickel and dimes. It's the nickel and dime in the frame of time. Oh, I got
Yeah.
to do this. I got to do this. And then before you know it, the day's over. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, oh, I got to load up now. So it's like, yeah, that's where it all comes in. You know what I mean? You're right.
Hmm.
I think anyone who decides to be or is lucky enough to be a parent, it's probably the hardest job in the world because it's the most rewarding job. I think if I were someone that had kids, which I don't now, or I don't, I've never had kids, but it's like I know for a fact that if I was in your position, I'd be the same way. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I know for a fact that I do what I do and so easily just jump and go because I don't have that tying me down. Um,
Hmm.
I'm not saying this is the way to do it. I think the reason that I do it this way is because I just don't financially have it to where I can have a kid because you need that, at some point, that's going to play a role, you know what I mean? And I know my financial situation enough where I'm like, I can do this and I can't do that. But the day this happens, which is like having a kid, I
Hmm.
I just know I'll just slowly start cranking things down because I think that's just human nature. You know what I mean? I don't think I'll
Hmm.
ever stop it, but I think my priorities will obviously change. And as everyone else in life, you just kind of have to pivot and adapt and kind of see this beautiful thing happen in front of you.
Two quick things. One thing I was going to say is your parents own a bakery. They probably have a similar lifestyle where they had to put everything on hold, like, to run a bakery because you have to be up at like 3 a.m. to probably do that or something. Probably owning a business and a bakery is very difficult. And then second, is my sight line directly to you now on your screen?
You're kind of looking right here. Right now.
Oh, I was gonna say before I was looking at you and I look off camera. Now if I look at myself, I think I'm looking directly at you for the people online. Anyways, I was just laughing at that. Um,
Now I will
okay.
say I will say when it comes to my parents though, like my father's the one who decided to do the Colombian bakery. My mom helps out, as much as she can, but my
Mm-hmm.
mom's actually a corporate mom. As a
Mm-hmm.
project manager for a company at the time it was called SunGuard Corporation, and it moved. That's really where I think I got all my car stuff from because she was the one that had like the Camaros and stuff like that growing up, and I didn't know. Like my mom was into like windsurfing and all that stuff, and
Oh, interesting.
I didn't know all that stuff until like way later on. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
how did this like Colombian girl? She came here when she was like 5 years old, so she's pretty much a Northeast Philadelphia
Mm-hmm.
girl. My dad came over when he was like 20, so he's
Mm-hmm.
more like Colombian. So, but I definitely realized that they gave up a lot for us to be where we're at, you know, because I know a lot of people wish they could do this in Colombia, and I'm well aware that it's because my parents got here and did the whole thing, immigrating and everything. So it's pretty awesome that they did all that, you know.
All right. As we finish up, what do you want to talk about? Do you have any topics, any ideas? I just kind of beat around the bush and ask you about like obviously all the things we talked about, but the concept of like you making drifting a career, which very few people successfully do, meaning you get to be in it for a very long time, how you did that. We talked about kind of just the logistics of running cars in your classes oh, you never plugged your school. What's your school called?
Oh, yeah, right. Drift School Evergreen.
Okay, Drift School Evergreen. And that's the website.
Yeah, driftschool.evergreen.com, and
Okay.
it just comes up contact
Yeah, I
on
was
it.
gonna say we chatted about different things and everything. What do you want to talk about for a minute before we get off?
I know a lot of people have been asking me what I'm going to do with that Cool Cat Motorsports 350Z that I was driving that year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's all redone. I'm hoping that because the dude Ed, he moved from Florida back up to Maryland,
Mm-hmm.
and so he's just kind of getting his life together. But then it's like I don't know. It's like what's left. You know what I mean? Clutch Kickers is gone. I would have loved to have done that. Um, we got Riverside that's going to be coming over to the East Coast. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen in 2024
Mm-hmm.
because it's like I don't know many places that you can run that car where it'd be fair. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to show up with that car where it's not fair. I don't. Just one of those things. I don't. Where do you go now? You know what I mean? I mean, you could go to the Catch My Drift series, but I mean, I guess you could bring that car down there. I don't know. The landscape I feel kind of has really changed ever since Clutch Kickers is gone. Because I'm like, well, where do you take these cars now, or like, where do you go? I think
Yeah.
Riverside is the next place where you go to. You know what I mean? So if I can, I'm going to try to do Riverside this year. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of those cars are a little bit awkward because they're so expensive to operate. Um, and they don't make sense in a lot of venues. But at the exact same time, I think that some of those expensive events with the big payouts didn't necessarily make sense to run as well. And I kind of don't know the longevity of some of those. I think people expect that they made a lot of money, and I just don't think that they do long term. Maybe they do shoot super short term when like you have excited sponsors and different things, but then maybe that stuff chisels away. I don't know much about the foundation of that, but I was gonna say I kind of think that whole thing is maybe a fad. I'm not sure. Because like as a person that hosts events myself, I don't know how some of those things make money. Like say take that Riverside thing. They give away 50 grand at one event.
I think so.
And how many drivers do they have and how many spectators and like that type of stuff.
I
If
don't
you
know.
add up those numbers, they don't seem to make sense a lot of the time when you're considering the track has to be paid for and staff and everything else. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And
Um,
it sucks because like that car is cool, especially now that he put NOS on it and did all this cool shit to it. And I'm like, yeah, I want to drive that thing. But it's like, where,
yeah,
you know what I mean? And it's just kind of like,
Formula D.
yeah, yeah, right. Come on, we all know how that goes, bro.
Yeah. Um, but I mean, there's a lot of event. I'm not trying to like crap on events. I just mean that
Yeah, neither
a
am
lot
I.
of
It's just,
like,
you need
how
to
do
go
you
to a
say?
particular place with that car or those type of cars. You know?
Yeah, I just mean like a lot of racing starts to escalate and it gets a little bit out of hand. And I'm not sure if drifting has found its stride necessarily. Um, with those types of, cash payout events, kind of like Circle Track does and everything. Circle Track seems to like they pack people in like every Friday or Saturday and they have like a payout system that works pretty well and like a crowd that comes out all the time to be entertained and they're entertaining a crowd and a lot of these drift events with the big payouts they don't seem to be filling bleachers if that makes sense.
Yeah,
um,
I
like
don't.
they're making the money off the drivers to pay the drivers, not making all the money off spectators and like concessions and beer sales and things like that and making the money. Kind of weird. That's
Yeah,
all. I was just having weird thoughts.
I think the way, for an example, I think the way Clutch Kickers did it the first 2 years, there was a lot more culture, there was a lot more personality. When it moved over to uh, the Freedom Factory, it was still cool, and in all respects to Freedom Factory, it's awesome what they did and they try to do. But the, for lack of, in layman's terms, the coolness was kind of taken out of it, and at least for me. And I kind of feel like you need you need the style, and I hate so many of us say that, and I don't think people understand what we mean by that. But like, it can't just be like, I don't know. I feel like I'm just an old timer just saying this, but like drifting isn't NASCAR. Like it can't, I mean, like I
Wait,
know,
why did it get less cool? Is that just your perception? Because I
I
think that the Clutch Kickers guys did a great job of doing what they tried.
no,
I
they
just
did,
think the
they did.
model might be a little bit broken, but I
Right,
think it's
right.
amazing they put so much money and effort and like that got so many people so excited. And
No, no,
it's
Clutch
the
Kickers
same
are
thing
first
as wait,
years,
one
yeah.
sec. People complain about Formula D and they think I dislike something. No, I don't. I just don't like how it's a wood chipper for a lot of grassroots people or money. And I think people could be more creative about it. I think Formula D is wonderful. It gives my friends an outlet to go be professional drivers. It does lots of cool stuff. Um, everything has its upside and its downside, and I just kind of discuss it. But I think it's absolutely wonderful that, there's a ton of drivers that get to be world class. They get to be marketing for companies, and like Chelsea, that's because we know him, both of
Yeah.
us. He gets to do so much cool stuff as a launching pad off of Formula D. So, anyways, that's all. I just wanted to say that before you rudely
No,
interrupted me.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm joking. Go ahead.
No, I like you said, I think Clutch Kickers did an amazing job. Like the personality and the way they presented it the first 2 years at
Hmm.
Emerald Dragway. It was just cool. It was just on. It had like a more hip weakness to it. I really think the future of it needs to be like what you guys do with the Street Series, and like personally right now, my favorite series that I like to watch footage of is the Drift Indy series over in
Hmm.
Ohio. Like it's just, maybe it's because it's nostalgic for me and the way they're going about it. And it kind of has like a final bout feel to it because the cars look really nice. But like maybe that's what it is for me. You know what I mean? Because I came up watching drifting and I saw that those nostalgic cars and that certain style. And maybe little Jimmy, who's watching drifting now, he's seeing like these monster truck 350Zs and he thinks that's his nostalgia. I don't know. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? But I think that stuff that you guys do, like the street series that you guys do, it's more cost effective, way more seat time, better for the drivers. I think it produces better drivers, but I don't know. I guess it's your money. You can spend it however you want, but
Yeah.
I think it's just for the quality of driving because that's what I focus on is the driving. I think those street events are the money. You know what I mean? And my
Yeah. Something odd I was just going to say about my own series, like the Texas Street Legal thing. I think that is great for the drivers, but for the spectators, sometimes it can be kind of bad because the 350Z, for instance, makes so much sense. 80% of the cars are Z's at this point, because they just make so much sense to run and those cars don't break and everything else. And in the beginning, there was tons of cars that weren't Z's. You remember how it was 5, 10 years ago. Everything was an S chassis. Well, it's not necessarily that everyone went and bought 350Zs. It's that all the S chassis and SRs blew up, and the 350Zs are the same ones 10 years later on the same engine going. You know what I mean? So like they just didn't die. Anyways, that's all. I
I
was gonna
mean,
say it's difficult for kids to get excited about 350Z sometimes, but
yeah, but I get that could be our perspective on it. You know what I mean? But
mm-hmm.
who knows? But in any case, I think those events are just they're just way more cost effective. Like the driving looks a little bit more like, I don't want to say cooler, but it just seems like, oh, like there's a little bit more of a chance that someone could lose if they miscalculate something, and like, but Formula Drift definitely has its place too. But I
Mm-hmm.
think for the longevity of the sport, if they push more of like what the street legal stuff is, or like Drift Indy Street Legal, and I think
Yeah.
the gamblers doing like they're doing a 235 series, so it's kind of like a street legal ish,
Mm-hmm.
more of like, I think that's just going to be good for the community. I think it's cool to drive really gnarly cars, and luckily I've had the opportunity where I've gotten to drive some gnarly cars. But the lap per dollar for a lot of us, not maybe not
Yeah.
all of us, but for a lot of us, just does not make sense. And I'll be honest with you, I'm so happy that Ed Thompson from Cool Cat Motorsports lets me drive that car. But like, dude, I feel bad. I feel bad sometimes. I'm like, dude, this is a shit ton of money that this dude just spent. And
Yeah.
it's, I don't know. I'm,
You
I
have to
would,
remember there's rich people in this world and people that's not a big deal and they just want to go have fun. And maybe they're older and they really appreciate the time with friends and the racing and all these things and they're trying to live it up. And like the money doesn't mean anything. Like these guys ran out of things to spend money on a long time ago. Cause I know people, they don't know what to do. So they go buy a Ferrari, they go do something they just don't have. And like they don't get the enjoyment out of the Ferrari that they would, going and racing with friends. So it's difficult to put our own caps on money on people, if you know what I mean, because not everybody is 16 years old working at O'Reilly's. There's a
yeah,
lot of people I know that, have $1 million in cars or $2 million in cars, and they don't care about those cars. They'd rather go drive a 350Z.
yeah.
We have this guy, Joseph, that's been driving with us. He has like a turbo Lambo and all this crazy stuff. And like he has more fun in his Z just like ripping around track.
That's so cool. That's so cool
Yeah.
to be able to like to even be able to have people that are like that. And you're right. You can't really, you can't, some people just have them, and he's done a really great job. And I think the best that I've gotten off of the most that I've learned off of Ed is maybe not so much me getting to drive the car, but all the business knowledge that he has. Like he'll ask me questions about the business, or I'll ask him questions like, "How would you go about this?" And I think that stuff is probably the most invaluable, or the most valuable stuff that I've been able to get from
Yeah.
it in those conversations. Because when would I have ever had a chance to sit down with someone who's had a family business since 1929? And there's just it's a different perspective on things. And I think I'm probably most gracious for that I was able to still have that conversations and
That's good.
relationship.
All right. Quick fire off question thing. I'm going to fire off questions and you tell me without any thinking, you have to answer immediately. All right.
All right, go.
Immediately. What do you think of the new RTR cars?
I think they're cool. I think the real wheels, if they have a purpose, cool. If they don't, I don't know if I'm really about them.
Yeah, that's the only thing. What about the fenders?
The fenders are cool. I don't know. I think I think the livery that looks the best out of all of them, I think right now is Vaughn's. Sorry, Chelsea, but I think Vaughn's probably looks the best. I do. I think Vaughn's probably looks the best.
Okay.
Everything else I don't really have an issue with because it's those cars, but those rear wheels, I need to know more about them first. You know what I mean?
They're Aero wheels.
Yeah, but I mean, is it just for
Why
like
are they on there? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, that's the
Oh,
thing.
anyways, I just saw a lot of polarization online about them and they just came out and I laughed because I was like, man, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, you remember how much everybody hated the Mustangs and then they became cool after a while. And then like people go up and down on the love and hate of Mustangs.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure you've been around long enough to know. I'm going to cough 1 second. And right now, the internet is like polarizing again on that.
it's so funny. It's funny how that works. It happened with
Who's the best driver in the world?
the best driver in the world.
Hmm.
I have no idea, man.
You don't have who's your favorite driver?
My favorite driver,
Hmm.
nostalgia for me is always going to be Taniguchi.
Oh,
So
that's interesting. I
I
have most people. I wonder how many people even know who Taniguchi is now.
I don't know. I really enjoy Taniguchi, and I really enjoy Kawabata and the guy from MCR, Yokoi.
Yokoi.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
really
brought
enjoy.
Yokoi over for a bunch of years.
Yeah.
My S15 was his car. All right, next up. What's the best track in the world for drifting?
For drifting, the best track in the world. I don't know. Out of all the ones that I've gotten to drive on, I think the one that I'm always going to say is the greatest place on earth is Englishtown because I'm biased. Um,
Interesting.
but the reason I say that is because, and this is why, the reason I say that is because I know how my guys drive there. I know how all those bros drive. So when I get to drive there in Group A, we really get to throw down. So because of
Hmm.
that, and I have that familiarity with them, I can really get the most out of that track because I'm around those people. If I had that somewhere else, like I'm
Hmm.
sure a lot of people have in Abisu, that would be their selection would be Abisu. I've never gone to Abisu, so I haven't had that experience. But I get to have that experience when I'm at Englishtown because of the confidence and how comfortable I am driving with all those guys.
That's very cool that your local track is at your favorite. That's something very rare and that's very cool. One quick note I'll just say on kind of my opinion on something. Um, Ebisu is, or Ebisu or Ebis, or however you want to say the thing. Um, it's not necessarily that the tracks are best or anything like that. It's the vibe you have there of like no control, no safety, no like adults. You're your own boss. You need to take care of yourself. You're in wacky right hand drive cars that aren't the best for the track. You are like in the mountains. It's really dangerous. No American track would be built like Toge or North Course or any of these tracks. So they're just so foreign. It's just crazy. So I was gonna say they might like they're not necessarily the best tracks, especially because they were designed for low power cars a long time ago. So they're very, I don't want to say unsafe because it sounds bad, but like they're not built for today's modern cars.
Right.
The cars are kind of like too fast and too gripped up and everything. But I'll just say that it's it's a weird thing, and that's what makes it rad.
I think
And it was very cheap to operate before, and now that that's going away and Minami shut down, it's starting to fade away. If that makes sense, the golden age of that is definitely like faded.
right. And you guys got to
Uh,
experience that. And I mean, I can only at this point maybe see
yeah,
from videos, but I think you're right. I think it's the vibe wherever you go. And I just luckily have been around a group of guys over there where I, I mean, some of my best memories and some have come from there. And it happens to be my local track, even though I've had opportunities to go many places. But I when I get there, like when I got there and I competed there in 2021, that's where I was most nervous
hmm
because all those guys know how I drive. It's like you're driving a mirror, you know what I mean? So I didn't care about clutch kickers. I'm like, none of these
yeah.
dudes know me. You know, when I got there, I was like, these guys know how
Okay.
you drive.
Shorter answers. Shorter answers. LS1, SR20, or JZ?
For the sound, for the cool points, definitely the SR20. For the sound,
Nope. Just what do you want to drive if you only
what
got to
did-
have one engine and you had to drive and maintain the thing and actually work it?
oh, I had to maintain it. LS1. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. If
I
when
like
I
that. You're like, I had to work on it. LS1.
Yeah, if it's an LS1 and I have to work on it at my current budget, I'm probably going to do LS1 if
Nope,
I
that's it. That was the whole question.
there it is.
Same thing with chassis as well. What chassis, if you have to operate it, work on it, do everything, what's the realistic chassis you want to drive?
240.
240? Okay. So basically a V8 240. Okay. Safe enough. And what is your own personal like play car that's built up?
Just my school cars at this point. That's
So
all.
only VQ cars.
The VQ cars, yeah. My Pram car, it doesn't operate, so it doesn't even count at this point.
Is that the 350Z?
No, that is the S13 V8.
Oh, you already have it. Okay. Perfect. Um, who's the most influential driver on you forever?
Chelsea.
Yeah, I was going to say I would assume it's Chelsea for you. And why was that? Very quickly.
Me and Chelsea have been friends since we were teenagers, and he's definitely just been someone that's always been pushing my back and, kind of just kept us saying, keep going. I saw him keep going. So I was like, all right, let's just keep going. So having a friend that's always going to be brutally honest definitely influenced me a lot.
Excellent. Um, where's the best drifting in the United States? Like the region, not the track.
Oh, I'm always going to say the Northeast.
You think so? You think they have the best drivers?
Uh, yeah, I mean, again, maybe it's because I just know them. Maybe it's hard. It's hard. Maybe I haven't traveled as much
No,
as,
don't go too long. Just say it. That's where you think.
yeah, yeah, I'm always going to say the Northeast.
All right. If you watch YouTubing on cars, what YouTube channel do you watch?
My buddies have gotten me into watching like that dude who just I forget his name. He calls them little sparkly things and blah blah blah. I don't know. He's some random dude who fixes cars that I just started just watching and stuff like. And I watched Lone Star or Chelsea and all this
But you obviously don't know much about him if you don't even know his channel name.
because they're watching it. I come in and they're already watching it, so I just sit
Oh,
there and
okay.
start watching. I'm like,
I have the problem of I don't really watch any YouTube channel stuff. I'm kind of old and I have a kid and everything. I produce it, but I don't necessarily watch it and consume it, which is weird. Very weird thing. I'm of the generation that goes to YouTube to learn to fix things. You know what I mean?
all that. That was me the other day. I was
Yeah.
on trying to fix the window on the 350.
Actually, I'll just like need to change the oil on something, and I'm like, instead of getting under the car and even looking where it is, I'll just watch a video for like 30 seconds, and you're like, okay, I got this. You like it's the super lazy YouTuber where like I don't even like pay attention to. Anyways, it's like cheating now, especially because you can just like skip through the thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, the very last thing is how would you tell someone? One second, this asked me to upgrade and pay him money. How would you tell someone that's getting into drifting today? How would you tell them to do it? What is the very first steps they should take?
Um, buy yourself a reliable car, suspension, don't overbuild it, keep it simple, and go get a lot of seat time. Get a good seat, get a good bucket seat.
I thought you were going to say, go out and buy a simulator, go get a bunch of seat time, then come to my class, and then I will tell you how to like build a car or buy a car or do whatever, and then choose what you want to do so that you get the car to make it and like match it to your local track. Don't buy a car that doesn't match to your local track. And then, like all these detailed things.
Thanks,
You
Aaron. You're the
skipped
best.
all that.
Thank you. You read my mind, bro. Thank you so much,
I
man.
didn't read your mind. You told me to just go buy a simple car and do it.
But
I was
the
thinking you were going to give a
simulator,
detailed answer. I
the
actually have
simulator.
people all the time asking me what to do, and that's basically what I tell them. And I tell them before they drive a car, go volunteer at an event, like drift events, go to several drift events, go ride in all the cars you like and you want, watch the people change tires, help them, like help them work on the cars if possible, help them prep the car a few days before the trip and learn how to like mount tires, how to load a trailer, how to strap a car down, and like how many wheels and tires and all these things a person brings. You'll naturally learn all of those things. You'll be inside someone's car in an event and you'll decide very quickly if you can live without air conditioning or with a cage, if you want a stripped out car, if you want something that's falling apart. Because a lot of people, they'll buy a project car and the car will be like a complete bag of dicks. And I don't think that most people understand, like, they're never going to debag a dick of cars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you
But,
buy a crap box, it's always going to be a crap box. If you go buy a really nice car, you like it'll stay a nice car for longer. Anyways, I was going to say all these people could have an education of running around and learning from people, but they don't do it. And they listen to people on the internet, and people on the internet are generally like 95% of the time retarded. Oh, I can't say that. They're
well,
dumb.
yeah.
Um, yeah. And the people that actually know what they're doing are never going to talk online and tell everybody. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Especially like old school racers never get online and tell people, secrets and stuff. So, anyways, that was my answer. I
I
went too
think
long.
you're absolutely. I think you're right. I think people should go to the tracks and just so they can see the etiquette of what their local track is and how it runs and what it means and how.
Yeah.
Because the drifting isn't going to make you tired. What's going to make you tired is you not being organized and then doing all that stuff, loading and this and that, and trying to figure all that out. And then
Mhm.
before you know, what ruined your day is that you got a flat tire on your trailer and you didn't know how to take care of this thing. You
Mhm.
know, so it's like you're right. Those are the things we don't really talk about. I don't talk about them in my
Yeah.
school, but it's one of those things where it's like you're absolutely right. Like that can make or break you if you don't know how to
Yeah.
navigate through that.
A lot of people also don't realize that if they buy like some crap box car that's stripped out and they don't have a truck and trailer, and they need to buy a drift car, a truck, a trailer, have a spot for that thing to live, all of it. Like most people are immediately going to get priced out of the market by all that stuff. Whereas if you live in an apartment and you bought a really nice 350Z like HR car, even though it's more expensive than some crap box thing, you don't need, like the truck, the trailer, the storage, all these different things. And it'd be way cheaper to do that stuff, even if it was like, it would be cheaper. People don't realize to buy an F80 M3 manual car for like 35 grand or something and drift that than it would be to buy a truck, trailer, and like a stock Z, or even an S13 with like a JZ in it. That, like, you have to be creative with your brain and like make stuff work.
But there again, I think there is some people out there that like they may not say it, but I swear sometimes I think people go and get the trailer because they want that look. Like, yo, he pulled up with the truck. And I don't know why they want that, but I would just like don't think about that, man. Just like you said, go find yourself.
I've never
You're
thought
gonna
about that.
yeah, I mean, yo, you see it. it's especially me being in the city. Like I know there's kids out here that just do what they do because they're just impressing the person on the corner. But those people, you're never going to line up with them at the local track.
I never thought about that.
So it's like, you
Interesting.
know what I mean? And why? Because I used to be one of those kids. I used to be in the streets. I used to be doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I used to be on the other side of the coin. So I'm like,
Oh,
I know why you guys are doing this because I used to do the same thing because I was broke and I didn't have any money and I was doing anything possible to try to get some sort of like, you know,
yeah.
recognition because we don't have anything. You know what I mean? So I understand it's some of that,
Mm.
but honestly, you might as well just spend the money on a good, reliable car. You're going to end up, if you get a shitty car, you're going to end up spending the same amount of money on it anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's one of those
Ooh.
things.
And I was going to say the advice of a simulator is not necessarily to get good or like, I mean, it is, but the big thing about a simulator is driving a car is really expensive. And if you could skip the first month, like 6 months or year of being terrible, and also skip the first 6 months of like or year of just going through tires, doing donuts, wearing out all your front tires, doing all the dumb shit that people do, it's like cheating. It's like a cheat code. You skip forward a year because the real awesome part of drifting is tandeming with your friends and doing all that stuff. And if you can do that and skip all the bullshit, that's pretty rad.
And
Because
like I
that's
said,
the whole point of drifting. The drifting, like, you're never going to be better than everybody on earth. You're never going to go win awards necessarily that everybody's going to love you over. Maybe. But, like, the big thing is just getting to tandem with the boys.
yeah, and I think that's what I got into it for. You know what I mean? Like I got into it like I want to be able to be good where I get to be in the tandem line.
Yeah.
And I think when we first got into it, the tandem line was a very sacred thing. Like you are good, you have to be good to be there. And I think over the years, that line or the standard of being good and being in that tandem line has definitely gone down. And I think that's more so have to do a lot with the organizers because they're like, well,
Hmm.
if I don't let people tandem, they're not going to come to my event. So they let people tandem, so more people come to their event. So
Mm.
it's, but
I got into drifting so long ago, all we could do is like street drifting in stupid, shitty industrial areas on shitty 90-degree. I'm sure Philly's kind of like this. There's just a bunch of 90-degree corners, like sliding through stop signs and stuff. And you're just like, you're like, this sucks. I want to quit.
yeah.
Like it was only cool because you got all the adrenaline of like, oh, I could go to jail or like this could be scary. It wasn't actually good driving. It wasn't actually good tracks. I live in a terrible area for drifting, like on the street, because, well, I shouldn't tell people to do that, but like because we don't have good roads here.
Yeah.
Like other places, like I was out in the Pacific Northwest, and the roads are amazing. All right, we have about a minute to finish up. Any final thoughts? I've been talking for the past 10 minutes, so
I
but you
mean,
talked a lot for the first hour.
I think the direction the drifting is going is good. And I think the next generation, the next 5 to 10 years is going to be awesome as long as we're still doing this because I'm seeing all the kids and they're going to get good and eventually they're going to be 21, 22, 25, 27, 30 and I can't wait for that to happen because it's going to get really good.
They're going to
Really,
be driving electric cars, and they're going to
whatever.
no manual transmissions. Such a weird world.
Weird
It's
world.
uncharted. We're going to be ripping out. There's not even going to be gas engines soon. Actually, I still think there will be. GM just announced they're doing another like run of LS type motors. Like they're going to have another like Gen 6 V8 platform.
We're
So we
good.
should be safe for like another 10 years.
Exactly. So we're good for that. But
But they're
it'll
only going to come in trucks probably because GM doesn't make a car anymore.
we'll
And they
probably
don't make a manual car and they don't make a front engine. Wait, maybe they do. Maybe it's a Camaro. Camaros are so off my radar.
yeah, they're definitely
I
off.
literally don't care about Camaros whatsoever.
But I think the future is good. I think a lot of people complain. I think the internet complains too much, but the future is really good. Drifting right now is awesome, and I think in the next 5 years, it's
Cool.
going to be sick. 10 years, we're going to look back on what we're doing now and be like, you kids are moving, bro.
I do need everyone to go out and buy manual Supras, the new ones, and like GR86s and 350. What are the new Z's called? The new Z car. People need to go out and buy those manuals so I can buy them in 10 years for like $6,000 because there's no more manuals. Okay. Thank you so much for taking your time to chat with me and everything. I appreciate it. He has a drifting school. Go check it out. Pimp it one more time.
DriftSchoolEvergreen.com.
Okay. You need to go check out his school, drift with him online, go chat with Reese. It's important to go like find people that are influential in drifting and attach yourself to them so you can get free questions answered when you need to know why your 350Z doesn't start. And he'll tell you need to go program out the key. Okay, thank you so much. Good night, everybody, or good day, or good morning. Bye. And if you stuck around, I just want to say thank you to the sponsors one more time. WhatMonstersDo.com, BC Racing Custom Coilovers, NK Wheels, Grip Royal, Volino Tires, Vapetasia, Heatwave Visual, Spec Clutches and Flywheels, and KBD Body Parts. All these guys have been a huge help over the years, helping out. We couldn't do this content without them, so thank you so much, everybody. Good night. Bye.